Hey guys, welcome back. In the previous video, when I used HTTP request from Aqua, is what you normally get, when you try to create a new file type of HTTP request. This, by the way, is only available in Aqua. If you want to use an IntelliJ, you need to have the paid to get HTTP request as a plugin. So at this moment, it's only available in Aqua. And when I used HTTP request, my main purpose was to only use it as an exploratory tool, because I'm also new with Aqua and I was just exploring it to see how it works. But then I realized that what if I can use this as a sort of an exploratory option which can live alongside test code. That would be pretty awesome, because typically what happens is automation serves a different purpose. And when you're writing automation test, you want your test to be readable, scalable, maintainable. But many times when you want to quickly test a bug, or if you want to test a changed API, you don't really want to go via the route of using an automated test, right? It's much more simpler if you can just run something like this. Just run it, and if it works, it's pretty awesome. And typically what people do is they use Postman for doing exploratory testing, and they use solutions like RestAssured for automated testing. But the problem with that approach is now you have one place where you're storing all your automated code, and one place where you're keeping all your Postman collections. And many times developers are asking for sharing for those collections, but Postman is a paid tool, so I don't really like it. But at the same time, I use it for manual exploratory testing. And I was wondering if I can use HTTP request, and if I can write my test alongside it. That would be pretty awesome, because one person can write stuff, and then that would be shared with everyone else. So with that thought in mind, I thought, let me see if I can at least make it work similar to how Postman works. So let's open back our GitHub project. So let's say if I open GitHub, and if I open, so this is repository, let me go back. Let's open our project. So REST Pro, and let's add a new item, and the item is to, let's call it as use HTTP request as an exploratory option for doing manual testing, right? And let me open this, and let's add a couple of items here. So for this to be able to help us achieve our purpose, what we need is that this should work for different test environments. So for example, developers might want to run it for localhost. You might want to run it for develop and staging environments, for example, right? And second thing is we should be able to set some variables and use them across scripts. Maybe I should give some examples as well. So for example, if I say a typical example of this could be, for example, in our case, could be token reuse, right? So one API endpoints get a token, and then everything else makes a use of it. In terms of environment, a typical use case could be, for example, of host URL, right? A host URL will be different for each of these environments. What else? Apart from this, for example, we should be able to write some basic assertions, tests on things like, for example, things like status code, and on things like asserting response body / headers, for example, right? What else? And I think we should also be able to have a mechanism to basically, separate our secrets from our usual configuration. So let's say separate secrets from other config. Okay, separate, and things like, for example, username, password, etc. For basic authentication. Authentication should not be a part of other config, right? We don't want to version control it. So these are like some of the things which I can think of. And of course, if I can think of more things, we can pick those items. But for now, this seems like a thing which is worth doing before we start writing our some basic rest assured test. So let's mark it as to do, and let's go back. So the first thing is we should be able to create some environments, right? And as you can see, it already gives an option to run with no environment. At this moment, it says no environment. So if I add an environment to public file, cancel, it is actually telling me like how I can create environments. So for example, it's saying, hey, you can write something like develop, and you can give a name of the key and value. So for example, if I give host, and if I keep it like this, then I have the environment config for develop. And let's say if I make a copy of this, let me add a comma, and let's do the same thing for staging, right? And now the next step is I want to know like how can I make use of these environment variables in my all these API calls, right? So first of all, let's copy this host URL. So for now, let's assume that we are testing in develop. Typically, your URL would be different for develop and different for staging, but at this moment, because we don't have different environments, for now I will just copy the same value here, right? So that we can just see that the same test work for different environments. But I still don't know like how to make use of this environment variable host in my API call. And what I found was like in the same ID, they have given some examples here. And then I just started, exploring these examples, and I saw that all the things that I wanted to know, they have actually given an example for this. So, for example, for GET request, if I click on this, they have given a few examples here. So let me zoom in a little bit, and as you can see, they have given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples here, and their examples are saying GET request with a header. So this is like giving a URL, GET request with parameter. So just providing some parameters, show environment, GET request with environment variables. So this is where they are showing that actually if you make a call using these two curly brackets, then you should be able to make a call by using the values from environment variables, right? So we will make a use of it, but before that, let's also see GET request with disabled redirects. So if you don't want to see any redirects happening, you can give @no redirect, and then it will not redirect. And GET request with dynamic variables. So for example, it is also providing some dynamic variables to make use of them in your API calls. So for example, things like timestamp, things like UUID are already available. So let's go back and let's see if I convert this with host. Let's see if it works or not. Invalid URI because of unsubstituted variable host, right? And this is because I've not yet chosen an environment. If I click on an environment, you can see because we define development staging as environments in this file, now those environments are available as an option. So if I pick up develop, and if I try to run now, we can see that now the request was 200 OK, and let me zoom in a little bit, and it also generated a token, right? So this helps us already meet our first goal, that we are able to create different test environments, and we are also able to substitute those environment variables in our API calls, right? So let's just quickly go ahead and replace the everywhere. So let me do a Control R, and let's replace everywhere we have this host with host variable. So let's see. I don't want to replace the variables, so I'm going to not do replace all, but be a little bit mindful about where I replace it. So not in curl. Yes, replace, not here, replace, not here, replace, not here, and replace, right? And let me do a quick run by just doing it a run all. So at this moment, everything worked fine. It did create a response. The response might not be 200. This tick does not mean that you get your expected response. That is something that we'll cover as a part of test. But at least the request ran successfully. It did not had any issues in running this particular request, right? What else? Now the second point was, how do we, for example, now I want to make use of this authentication token. If I run it, I want to make use of this authentication token everywhere in the script where we are doing, for example, this post and delete calls, right? So instead of hard coding it, I want to basically capture this authentication token and want to use as variable value over here. How do I do it? So again, let's go back to our examples. Let me close the GET request. And I found the answer in request with authorization. So if I click on this third option, it actually says, different ways on how you can do basic authorization using user password, using username password here. And I think this is where it says authorization by token, part 1 retrieve and save token. So this was an example where it creates a token, and then it says if it is coming as a part of, so like if I run this, let's run this example. In this example, if we see, it generates a response, and in this response it has a response body, and then it has a key called JSON, and then with token it is able to get the secret token value, right? And when I read a little bit more about it, this is something which is called as a pre-request setup script, right? So if I just copy this, and then it says if you want to use it, you can easily use it like you can use any other variable, like it is using it here. So if I go back, after we make a call on authentication token, let's make a call again just to be sure. So in this case, the body is very simple. We don't have like something like JSON.token there, but we just have something like token. So let's call this here. And in fact, let me call this as, let's keep it auth token, right? And in request body, it's directly like this, and the name of the key is exactly the same. So let's use it like it is specified here. And then let's try to see if I use this variable value in delete, would it work or not? But before we do that, let's see if I try to run delete now, what happens. We are getting a 403 forbidden because this token is already now expired, right? So what I'm going to do is double curly brackets, and I will give auth token, and let's run it again. It's still forbidden because the token is not yet set. So if we go up, let's run it one time. So now it is run, the variable has been set, and if I try to run it again, maybe it might not work. Oh, it is actually remembering it. I thought maybe it will only work, when we run all the scripts together. But this is even awesome that I ran it above, and it remembers that variable value, and you can see, we are getting the right response. Well, it's not the right response, it should be 200, but we know that in RESTful Docker application, they have some intentional bugs. So that's the reason why it is saying it, but it has actually deleted the resource. So let's do the same thing over in patch as well. So let's go to patch. Let's run this. Method not allowed to explain application JSON. Okay, let's go to put. Let's put this auth token. Yeah, so this normally happens method not allowed when this this ID does not exist, right? So let's just try to give it a run, and let's see what happens. And if you get the same response, method not allowed. This is happening because this this ID that we are trying to use does not exist, and in fact that's a very good use case. So this is like, let me open this, edit, for example, host URL token, and in fact, other variables like IDs, right? So this is another good use case. So Windows 1. So let's do one thing. Let's try to capture the ID from post request. So in fact, let's just first test it manually. When we run it, it's created and the booking ID is 201, right? So if I now try to do a put with 201, this should work, right? Because if the auth token is valid, we now have a valid ID. It's saying forbidden, so the token has already expired. So let's run it one more time, and let's go down to put, and if I run it again, you see the response is 200. Okay, because this ID is correct. Now we don't want to like keep changing these IDs every time, so it's also a good use case that after setting the authentication token, once we create a new resource, let's also capture its ID in the post call. So let's come here. Let's use exactly the same syntax of pre-request script to set something called booking ID. We have get, it does not mean anything. So in fact, we will also change this get position after the post one. So let's come here and let's call it as booking underscore ID. And in fact, let me comment this for now. Let me comment this for now. Let me see how does it creates an ID. So the ID is coming as booking ID. Okay. So what we need to do here is we need to say incline.global.set, give me a booking ID from response body, set the booking ID as booking ID, right? And let's move this request from here to, in fact, I can just probably get a particular booking thing from here to, after we create a booking, let's first see if we can get that particular booking based on the ID, right? So let's copy this and do the same thing, booking ID, and Control C. This is the place where I want to put it. If it was 1, let's leave it like this. So if everything goes well, we should be able to booking ID, add this possible solution, add new environment file, add variable to existing environment, run with environment. Okay, so let's try it one more time. How did we use it here? We used it auth token. So did I not run it again? Yeah, so let me run it again. So we ran it, and this time 3951 should have been saved. So if I run this again, now we should be able to get 3951, right? Now you see it's running perfectly fine, right? This is exactly what we want. So the variable substitution is also working fine for other variables like ID. To update, let's change the booking ID, and auth token is there, host is there, everything else as well is already replaced, so this is also fine. In patch, we will do the same thing, booking ID, also working fine. So everything else is replaced. In delete, let's also now delete this, so it's deleted now. And if I try to do a get again, that get should fail, right? Because this resource is now deleted, 404 not found. This is exactly what we want, right? So in fact, I can Control Z. In fact, let me copy this and let me put it after the delete request, and then we can use it for assertion to make sure that whatever we deleted now should not exist, and it should give us a 404 response, right? So if we go back, what's covered? This is covered. We should be able to set some variables and use them across script. This is also covered. We should be able to write some basic assertion test, right? So let's go to this option. So again, if I go to examples, the fourth example is request with test. So if I click on this, here they have provided some examples of how you can like do certain assertions, like assertions for response status. You can even do assertions for content type. You can even do assertions for example, for body having certain properties or not. So let's just make a copy of this, and I think this is called as post response actions. So let's copy this and let me go back. And in fact, before I add these assertions, let's see what happens if I try to run all the bookings, like run all the APIs in this particular file. If I open any of this, it says response, post processor, and test. So I think I already added some test to a certain API. Maybe I was just exploring it before this session. And everywhere else where we have not added, you will only see something like response, right? So if I scroll up, for example, let's put this here, authentication token. What are we doing here? We have post processor, script finish, test. Where is the test? Where is the test? I don't see any test here. Client global set auth token. This is post process script, which is what is happening here. Get response. I don't know why it is calling it as a test. So let me add quickly a test here. Client.test, right? Tab. So let me add this as a part of this post request processing, right? And I will remove this line, and let me see. Maybe it's calling this as this post process thing. It's considering it as a test. So if I run this again, let me see what happens. Response file saved. Let me run everything. Run all in booking. Yeah, it has response. It has test. Request executed successfully. Post processing is finished. So let's just go ahead and copy this. So this is our test, and what I'm going to do is after post I'm going to check. So let me put this here. Seems we cannot have two post process scripts, so let me remove this. And what is this? Request successfully. It should be 201. Let it fail. It's no problem. Control C. Booking ID. Let me remove this booking ID setup. The rest remains the same. So I'm just going to put 200 as an expected response for everything, which should not be the case ideally, but I want some of the tests to fail as well, right? So it's no problem, if the test fails, because that is the intention. Delete. Get a booking, we should get 404, but I'm saying 200. It's no problem. And let's now run all the requests again. And this time we should see more failures. So this is good. In delete, if you see, for example, now, where is delete? It says it expects a response 201, but actually it gives a 201 response, right? And we already know that that's actually a bug, so it should actually fail. So we have nothing. We don't want to change anything here. and it's actually a bug that we want to raise in the actual application. The problem is, if you look at, for example, this error message, it does not tell us what was actually the actual response, right? And then it's not very useful, because like you don't exactly know, okay, it was not 200, but what was it? So what you can also do is actually you can do something like client.log, and you can actually log the status, and you can even in fact say response status. You can even say, for example, expected response 200, and then you can say, for example, actual response, and then you can just put this value. And now if I run this again, 405 method not allowed, of course, because the ID is deleted. So let's do a full run again, and let's see what happens this time. So if I go into delete now, and if I look into test, now actually we can see what the exact response status was. And it says expected response 200, actual response 201. So it is little bit more meaningful than just seeing this plain text message that expected response was 200. Now you might ask me, how do I know what all options are available for this client log thing? And that brings me to my next topic. So for example, if I click on like open HTTP client help, if you click on execute HTTP request, and here you have got 3 articles about HTTP client, exploring HTTP request syntax, and HTTP response handling API reference. If you click on the last one, and for example, if you go to HTTP response reference, this is where they explain what all options are available for the client. Was it here? Let me see, properties, HTTP client reference, test, assert, log, and exit, log, assert, test, and exit, right? So for example, if you give here client dot, you see that these are all the options that are available here, right? So my suggestion to you would be, go to this URL, click here, go to this request with, no, not here, go to open HTTP client help, and read through all this documentation which is specified here. And for example, HTTP client is something that is available for IntelliJ Ultimate version, so it's not available in your community version. So you really have to use Echo ID if you want to make use of it. So go through all this documentation. This is super useful. I learned a lot by going through all the documentation. It's not huge. You should be able to finish it in, I don't know, 1 or 2 or 3 hours. And then exploring the HTTP request was again another page where I learned a lot from what can be done, how you can do different things using the HTTP request option. So I will not go into details now. I will come back to it once we have refactored our test. So let's go back. So yeah, so this is also good. Where is it? Delete. So now we also have learned how to make our assertions more meaningful, but still I'm using response.status couple of times. So instead of doing that, maybe what we can do is we can probably say where response, we can say where status is equals to response.status, right? And it's not normally asking us to put a semicolon, but let's try what happens if you put a semicolon. And instead of doing this, now I'm only giving status. Let's see if this works, right? So let's go back and run again. Delete, test, request executed success. Okay, so the response status was 201. So this is working fine. So we also learned how to eliminate duplication and define some variables inside these tests. So if I go back, and guys, I understand that this is becoming a long video, but I think this is very useful in the sense that in the past I've always struggled with the idea of keeping my exploratory test somewhere else and my automated test somewhere else. But now I can actually keep both my tests. If I refactor, rename this, rename, and if I say uh, explore booking API, you know, I can actually keep both my exploratory test and my automated test side by side in the same package. So this is actually revolutionary. Like I think I'm going to make use of it more often in my future projects. So even if it is a lengthy video, stay with me, and I think it will change the way you keep your automated request versus your manual request. So this is good. What else? Get, test. Again, I was saying, for example, in this get call, this message is not super useful because it says response status is not two-ended. But hey, what is it? Like, it would be nice if we can get more meaningful information. So let me just copy the whole thing here and paste it here. So status, actual status is this, and we actually expect it to be 404. Expected response is 404. Let's keep it two-ended for now, just to see how it works. So let's see if I run this. 404 not found. This is perfect. Yeah, if I run all the tests, okay, this is cool. Response code is 404. Expected is 404. Actually is 404. So I need to change this, and then this test should be green again. Run all. Right. Let me just see one more thing. If you click on test, you can actually see what the response of test was, right? So it was my bad that I was trying to run it every time, all the requests, but that is not true. What else? So if I come back here, REST Pro, we did this, we did this. We should be able to write some basic assertions. That is also fine. Status code, assert, response, body, and headers. Okay, I did not see how to assert response body, but we'll also cover that. But let's first go to the last topic, which is about separating secrets from other configuration, like username, password. So for example, if I come back to this request, what we see is in the first post call, where we generate authentication tokens, we are actually specifying the username and password inside this particular file. And you know that if we do this, you cannot push it to GitHub. These are like basically your project secrets. So how do you deal with the project secrets? So the way you can do it is, if you click on add environment to private file, it will create a new file called http client private.in.json. For global, it is http client environment JSON. And what it actually does is, whatever is specified here, it will be overridden when it is also specified in the private environment JSON file. How do I know this? Again, by the documentation which I said, I referred from the examples. But for now, let me first add a couple of more fields. So let's say if I add username, and let me call it as okay, I don't want to add it into the global config file because we know that this is something that we want to check in. So I want to say to be overridden from, and let me go back and let me do a refactor, rename, and copy this file name, right? So I'm saying that this value should be overridden from this particular file. And let me do a control D, remove the comma, password, HTTP client env, and now we have all the fields. Let me also copy paste this, add a comma here. So now we have values for both develop and staging. In fact, why not also add something for localhost, because that would be perfect. So ideally you will have something called localhost, which the URL would be something like HTTPS localhost, but for now I will keep it the same so that you can pick any environment and you can work with it. But ideally this will be something like localhost. This will be something like staging, RESTful booker, something, and develop would be something like develop RESTful booker. But for now we know that it will not work with this, so let's keep it like this, right? And in the private JSON, so let's just copy the whole thing. In the private environment JSON, we are not going to put any information about host, so that can go away. And we are only going to put information about things that are going to be private. So we are not going to version control this. So I will add this into the gitignore file, right? So, but for now, let me just copy this admin and password. So I will put this as admin and password 1, 2, 3. Let me first put the right values and then I will change it. Okay. So now we have username and password available in both the global file and it is also available in the private file, right? So now if I try to substitute these values of admin and password with actually Control Z. Yeah, that's another thing. You have to give these values inside the quotes. So let's say if I call it as username, let's just try to run it. Let's see what happens. Token is generated, right? So it worked. And if I copy this, and if I call it as password, again, it worked. So we are able to do variable substitution, right? So from a gitignore perspective, what I have to do is I have to ignore. So let me first put all these environment files inside the in a root repository, because typically what will happen is you will have different Explore API endpoints for different packages. So maybe if you have something called booking, or if something hotel, or if something called customers, you might have separate packages. And so let me just create a package, something called hotel. You might have another package called, let's say, new package called customers, right? But the environment details is going to be common for all different API endpoints, right? So it makes sense that you keep them in a higher level. So let's create a new package called, no, not Java class. Let's create a new package called environment. So now let's move these two files in the environment package. And if I move it to environment package, let's just do a quick run and see if it is still working fine or not. So if I go to Explore Booking API and if I run it, the token is still created, right? So this is perfect. And let's also just go ahead and ignore HTTP client private. So let me copy this file name, Control C, and let's go. And if I at this moment, if I go to unversioned files, we can see that this file is also shown to be like eligible file for putting into Git. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to git ignore, and I'm going to say ignore secrets file. Okay, for some reason, when I give the wildcards, it was not skipping the file, but could be due to some caching issues, because now I see that when I give wildcards and I ask to ignore this file, Git is not showing this file for version control anymore, which is exactly what we want, right? So with this, we are also able to Windows. So with this, we are now also able to ignore these. We are able to separate the secrets from other config, and we are also able to ignore it from version control, right? Now, now you might ask, like for example, but if you do it this way, everyone has to, maintain a copy of their own username and password, which is perfectly fine because let me close all other tabs, which is perfectly fine because we don't intend to run these particular API or test in the CI. Like in CI, we will have our own automated test that we will run using Maven, right? So it is perfectly fine that each user maintains a copy of their own secrets. Like how will they know which secrets to overwrite? But in this file, every field that you think should be a secret, you mentioned that this should be overridden from HTTP client private and JSON. So everyone can copy a file, and then they can maintain their own username and password. So this will work perfectly fine on their local machine, and of course we're not going to make any use of it in the CI. So it's perfect, right? Let's see if I'm missing anything else, because if not, then probably we have covered everything that we wanted to cover in the video. Maybe one last thing that we could still cover is asserting the body. So let's say if you want to assert something in the response body, maybe you want to assert the name. So how can you assert that? For example, in this case, if you want to assert booking first name, we can also do that. So let's say if we do a control D, I could say response dot body dot booking dot first name, and if I put my name here, it should fail, and we can say booking first name should be, and it could actually be given as so let's put another variable name. I could call it as control C variable first name equals to this, and I could copy this here, and this should be this one, right? So let's run this again. What happened if I run this? If I go to test, the test has failed, and it says booking first name should be Jim, right? And I did not log the actual name, so that's why it did not show. So if I actually do client.log first name, and then first name, let's run it again. This will be a little bit more meaningful. So if I go to test, first name is Jim, booking first name should be Jim, but I gave it Pramod. So you can actually say expected booking name, booking first name Pramod, actual booking first name is this, and this time it would be much more readable, right? Expected booking name this, actual booking name is Jim. But of course this expectation is incorrect, so it should ideally be Jim and Jim, and now when we run it again, the test should pass. I go to test, now the test is successful, right? So I think with this we have covered everything that we wanted to cover. We can have now different test environments. We are able to set some variables and able to use them across the script. We should be able to write some basic assertions. We saw how to do it for status code, assertion response body, even with headers. I will not cover with headers, but you can do the same. Separate secrets from other configuration. So yeah, with this I think we have got a very powerful script in our hand, which we can use for exploratory testing. And not only that, once one person has done it, you can now commit this script. So if I go here, let me see, git ignore. Yeah, I'm going to add this. This is also perfectly fine. It's now flexible to run on any test environment, so it is awesome. So let me also do this environment. Yeah, this is also perfect. So let's commit it and say refactored HTTP request to make it work for any test environment, and use variables across script. Also added test/assertions, right? And if I do a commit and push, now it's pushed. If I go back and if I refresh now, source test, now we actually have a repository called environment, where we have this environment.json file, right, which contains our environment information. We have booking folder, which contains explore booking API, and as you can see, guys, this code is something that will run in any user's machine. It does not contain things like changing timestamps or things like changing how do you call IDs, which is what typically you see in Postman, which makes it impossible to work using Git. So this is awesome, and the only thing which I want to suggest in the end is uh, I did not cover, for example, post request. So let's just quickly, briefly cover it. It says how you can pass body as a JSON body, how you can pass body as parameters. For example, here, how you can send data like form with text and file fields, dynamic variables in request body, things like UUID, random int, and timestamp. But the most important thing that you should do is go to this Open HTTP client documentation, click on execute HTTP request, and explore the HTTP request syntax. This will give you a ton of information about how to make use of this particular API in much more powerful way, right? So I will not cover all the options because that's not the goal. The goal is just to show that HTTP request, in my opinion, seems like a very good alternative to using Postman, and it allows me to keep my like manual exploratory and API endpoints together with my test scripts, which is what I'm going to cover in the next video. I'm pretty excited to use this option in my coming projects, and I hope you also explore more on using Aqua. So that's it for this video, and in the next video then we will go and try to cover so let me mark it as done, and in the next video I will try to write some very basic rest assured test, which we will then refactor to write more clean decoupled test design style tests. Cheers, bye bye.